Helen, and thanks to everyone who chose to sign into this event. We're really excited to be with you this morning and show you some of the new features of the Red Book. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just give me one moment here. Okay, excellent. So, again, this is Chelsea Griffin. I'm the Auditor Treasurer Services Supervisor, and I have with me one other presenter today.
Hi, I am Sarah Vanderwall, and I work in delinquency and forfeiture.
Okay, so we're going to spend the first 15 minutes or so of this webinar just going over the Red Book, its features, ways to use it, and then if you could actually hold off on questions until we're done going over those features, I'd really appreciate it. And again, we'll be using Helen to help facilitate that conference. So thanks again, Helen, for helping us today. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just to remind everyone where the Red Book lives. So I'm at the Department of Revenue's website, the main page. I'm just going to go up to the search box and type in Red Book, click the magnifying glass, and my first hit is to the Red Book webpage. So there's some text up here just about the history of the manual, when it was last updated, and then our second PDF document here is the manual itself. So I'm going to go ahead and open it, and voila, there it is. So just something for you to know is this new Red Book was designed to be used electronically, and if you do choose to print it, you're going to lose out on a lot of the functionality of this new version. So we highly encourage you to use the Red Book in its electronic format, and I actually encourage you to download the manual. So if I hover toward the bottom here, there's a disk, and you would just click on that, and you can save it. You can see I've already saved it to my desktop. I encourage you to do that, and I'm going to demonstrate why. So I am currently in Internet Explorer 11, and if I scroll down and hop into one of the Red Book sections and scroll down some more, if I click on a link to an external website, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the statute. I'll explain what's going on here later. You can see that when I look at my tabs, it actually opened in the same tab that the Red Book was open in. So now I can go between the web page and this page, but I no longer have that Red Book open. So if I press the back button, you'll see that the Red Book just relaunches, but that doesn't bring me back to where I was before. So if you download the Red Book, this is my downloaded copy, you'll see that if I click into a section, it goes ahead and opens that external link in its own tab. And I personally prefer that method. Okay. One of the things I also want to tell you, I'm just going to click back up to the table of contents here and go to the main page. So the new Red Book does have a reduced number of pages. The old Red Book was a little over 500 pages, and this one is 428. Now, we didn't take out content from the Red Book. All we did was reformat it, and then we consolidated information that was duplicated in several places. So, for example, when it came to definitions, definitions aren't in multiple places now. They're in the glossary. They're consolidated there. So that has, I think, improved the functionality of the Red Book because now you're not sifting through information that you've already seen before. And historic information is now in the Endnotes. So if you need to dive deeper into a topic, that's great. Go to the Endnotes, but you don't have to speed through historic information in order just to get to your point and get your question answered. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the features. I'm going to cover the first half of the features of the Red Book, and then Sarah's going to cover the second half of the features as well as some tips and tricks. So I'm going to start off by discussing the table of contents. This is a new feature to the Red Book, and the table of contents has comprehensive links to all of the different places in the Red Book. So you can see when I put my cursor over these different lines of text, I have a little hand, and that's because these are hyperlinks. So if I click on a series, for example, That'll take me to the series opener, which has its own table of contents if you choose to use these. Now I'm going to click back, or I can click on a specific section, and it'll take me directly to that section. So that should really speed up your navigation in the Redbook when you are using it. I'm going to click back to the table of contents again. And as I scroll down past the series, there are a few other features that are noted here too. The glossary, which, as I mentioned, goes through definitions that are common in delinquency and forfeiture. Then we have the index, which is just an index of different terms or things that you might be looking for, and it provides page references. And then we have the endnotes. We'll be covering each one of these in more detail later, but I just want to point out that you can get to them through the table of contents. And then the other feature is this link down here in the bottom right-hand corner of each page. So I'm going to click into, for example, 6765, and if I'm just going between, let's say I see this link to 6760, so I click on that, and it takes me to a different section. If I'm feeling a little bit lost, I can always go down to the corner here and click on the table of contents to bring me right back to all of the different sections and the hyperlinks to get me anywhere in the manual. Okay, one of the new features with the Redbook as well are the links to the Minnesota statutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump to PDF page 14 as an example. And I'm going to scroll down to the footnotes. So I can see that there are a bunch of different links to Minnesota statutes. This min.stat and then the number, that is just an abbreviation for Minnesota statute. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And it takes me directly to the reviser site. So this is an unfortunate coincidence that the Minnesota reviser site is actually undergoing maintenance as we do this webinar, but usually the link will take you to the statute directly. So you'll have all of that statutory language right in front of you, and this is the site that we use at the Department of Revenue in order to research the statutes. So you're really just using the resources that we would be using when we answer your questions. In addition to Minnesota statutes, we actually have links to federal laws. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to page 44 in the Redbook, and I'm going to scroll down, and I can see that there's this odd site here. And so this is to the United States Code, which this is where federal laws are codified. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And I can see that it brings me to Cornell University Law School's U.S. Code. So this is the U.S. Code. It's just provided for free through Cornell. And this is where I go when I'm looking at a federal law. So the site is right in front of us. All of that language is right here. So you don't have to worry about trying to find this on your own. We already provided that resource for you within the Redbook. Okay. I'm going to click back into my Redbook, go back to my table of contents, and now I'm going to demonstrate the glossary for you. So like I mentioned, the glossary is just right past all of these sections. So I'm going to scroll down and then hit the glossary. Okay, so the glossary just defines terms that you see throughout the Redbook. It's alphabetized, and I guess I should say it's not just terms, but it's phrases as well. So if you're looking for more information on a specific phrase, please either go to the glossary directly, or I'll show you how the glossary is interactive with the rest of the Redbook. For example, if I go into, we'll just do 6130 again, and I see that there are these underlined or hyperlinked terms here. So I've bid in for this state, for example. If I click on that, it takes me directly to that term in the glossary. And you can see that we're in the glossary because it's noted here on top. So I can get my definition and click back into the table of contents and go right back to my section. So this is just a way for you to dive deeper, or if you're training new staff, for example, this is a great way for them to get up to speed with the language of delinquency and forfeiture faster. I'm going to go ahead and scroll back to the table of contents, and now I'm going to show you the endnotes. So I'm going to scroll past all of this and go into the endnotes. So like I mentioned previously, this is where we put a lot of the historic information. So you can see with this very first endnote, for example, this talks about the language prior to 1983. So generally, you won't need to know this information if you're just trying to get to the bottom of a question for a taxpayer. This is just extra information for you if you need to do some deeper research. So, and one thing for you to note, the footnotes in the Red Book are numbers, and then the endnotes are these Roman numerals. So if you don't understand why a footnote looks weird, it's probably an endnote. Unfortunately, they're not hyperlinked, but again, you can easily go between a section with an endnote and the endnotes themselves using this table of contents link. So I'm going to go right back up to the table of contents. And now I'm going to talk about some internal reference links that exist within the Red Book. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump to page 16 and show you what I mean by an internal reference link. So I'm going to scroll down, and I can see that footnote 17 says, see section 6160 for more information on interest rates in relation to delinquent taxes. Okay, well, where am I right now? If I scroll back up, I can see that I'm in section 6120. Well, I want to find out more information about this topic, so I just go ahead, click on that link, and it takes me to the next section. And again, if I want to get back to where I was, I just go and click on 6120. Okay. The last thing that I'm going to highlight for you before I turn it over to Sarah are Attorney General sites, or opinion sites, I guess I should say. So I'm going to skip ahead to page 213. Okay. Now I'm going to scroll down, and I can see that footnote 307 has this cite to an Attorney General opinion from 1936. Now, unfortunately, when we try to do the hyperlinks, we can't link to all of these Attorney General opinions. But I'm going to show you how to actually obtain this opinion, even though it's not hyperlinked. So I note where I am in the Red Book. Here's my citation. I'm just going to go ahead and go to my search engine. I'm going to go to Google. And then I'm just going to type in Minnesota Attorney General. Okay, so this is what pops up. And I'm going to go to the Attorney General's website. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but all I need you to know is to go to About Our Office, and then you can see that the second link here is to Attorney General opinions. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and then I'm going to scroll down. So I can see that the Attorney General's office does offer some online access to Attorney General opinions, and those are opinions that are from 1993 to the present day. And they're organized by date, by subject, and by entity requesting the opinion. Well, that's great for a lot of Attorney General opinions, but unfortunately, when we go back to our Red Book, we're looking for something from 1936. So that online index won't really help us. However, if you scroll down a little bit further, it says how to obtain copies of Attorney General opinions. Well, I can see that there's an email address, and I'm just going to click on that. Oops. And this just brings up an email that I could send. So I would just put in the subject line, Attorney General opinion, go into the body of my email, and then just type a general greeting. So I'll just say greetings. And then I'll say, please send me the following Attorney General opinion. And then I go into the Red Book, copy this information. I actually don't need the page-specific information, but I do need the number and the year. I just right-clicked and press copy. I go back into my email, and I'm doing Control-V, which pastes that information. Okay, and then just say thank you, and then I'll shoot off that email. And what it does is it goes to the librarians at the Attorney General's office, and generally they get the opinion to you in a PDF format within the business day. They're very, very fast, and I use this service all the time. So it is something that I want to make you aware of, and I hope that you do use it if you do choose to access an Attorney General opinion if it's not online. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Sarah.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to leave off on page 35. We'll go up to the top here, because I'm going to demonstrate some links to our web pages. Okay. You'll find that throughout the new Red Book, there are links to the DOR's webpage. It will come up in another tab. The link that we'll click on now brings you to the page on the site where it has interest rates for Minnesota counties. You can see this down at the bottom of the page here. And like I said, it brings you right to our external website where you can find this information. The next feature that I want to talk to you about are the email links that generate on an email page. So we'll go to 17 for an example of that. Here is where you can find an email address. When you have a question about something in the manual and need assistance from property tax, we've included a feature where you can send a quick email directly to the auditor treasurer staff who can help. You can just click on this, and it'll send you right to the correct email address. I'll exit out of that. Something new, something just improved, we'll talk about some flowcharts on page 135. We've tried to simplify the complex process by creating flowcharts. Many of them will ask you yes or no to find the answer to your question. This is an example of the redemption of property chart. You can see where the arrows begin, and it will answer the questions for you, yes or no. Well, let's skip to page 49. These are narratives that can be found at the end of each series. These narratives are particularly helpful for beginners. Property tax is a complex and complicated process of forfeiture, can be really confusing. So the narratives are meant to reflect real-life scenarios to help put the process from beginning to end in a more easily understood story format. And again, these are found at the end of each series. We'll talk about case sites now. We'll go up to page 193 for an example of that. There's no direct link for access to case studies, but the information provided down here at the bottom, here's a case study. So you should work with your county attorney, and you'll be able to find what you're looking for with this information down here. Other state agencies, we've provided links to other state agency websites, such as the DNR for your convenience, and there's an example of that on page 266. It's right down here. You'll find a hyperlink for the DNR's website. You can click on that, and it'll open in a new tab, Department of Natural Resources, right there. If you're trying to find some examples like radon warning statements, we've provided links to those external websites as well. We'll go to 313 for that example. Things like the warning statements can be tricky to find. So we've provided an example of this warning statement publication from the Minnesota Department of Health website. And here's the link directly to that. We can click on that. We want to hit open, and it'll load it for us in a new window as well. We'll exit out of that. The next thing I want to talk about is the index. The index was not fully updated to match the page numbers exactly to the finished Red Book. We'll go for an example of that. We'll go to the table of contents and we'll scroll all the way down to the index. We noticed this as we were going through the manual for the very last time. This will be updated when the new updated Red Book comes out next year.
Yeah, after the legislative
session of this year, sorry. We'll go back to the table of contents. And so some helpful hints for when you're trying to search for something is we'll go to Control F and we're going to search for words and phrases because say we have a question about a disabled veteran. So we're going to hit Control F and we're going to go up here. We'll type in disabled veteran. You can see that it came up with no matches throughout the entire document. So we'll just try and think of a different word that might help. So let's think of something like military. You can see that we have a hit here, and if we keep hitting next, it will just highlight every word that goes through military. You can just keep hitting next until you find the section that you're looking for. But just note that if you do come up with 0 matches, there's plenty of other ways that you can utilize the search tool. We'll exit out of that. Another really simple but pretty helpful tool is the zoom feature. So let's go to page 135 again. And we'll look at this chart here. Some of the writing is a little bit small, so you can just hit zoom and you can read everything super easily. We'll zoom back out. And I'll turn it back over to Chelsea for a conclusion.
Okay. Yeah, I'll actually just show you one more feature as well with the PDF. So if you downloaded the Red Book, and you go into File and Properties, Advanced. Oh, wait, no. There's a way, Preferences, I think it is. If you go into these preferences, there's a way for you to make sure that if you exit out of the Red Book, that you pick up on the last place that you were. So if you get interrupted, for example, by a taxpayer or a phone call, then you can, it'll just pick up right where you left off. And I encourage you to do some Google searching on how you can play around with these preferences because it'll make the PDF just all that much more dynamic for you. Okay, I just want to end by talking about updating the Red Book. So in our process for updating it, so the date that it was last updated is on the cover page. So if you ever want to know when we last updated the Red Book, just go to the bottom left-hand corner of the cover page here, and you can see that that was the last date that we accessed it and made updates. We update our manuals annually for legislative and policy changes, so we definitely anticipate that we'll have to do that this year, and we would do those updates in the late summer, early fall. We will always post the newest version of the Red Book online, and we will also always send an email to the county auditors and treasurers letting all of you know when the Red Book has been updated. Okay, well, that is all that we had for this. I think we're running a little short on time, but we can stick around for questions for as long as we need to. So, Helen, we can open it up for questions now.
At this time, I would like to remind everyone, in order to ask a question, press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Your first question comes from the line of Jeffrey Strand.
Oh, sorry, we had a question early just because we couldn't hear the speakers very well. It wasn't an actual question.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So, nice job. We're done.
We managed it. We were really quiet.
Okay.
Your next question comes from the line of Doug Hanson.
Okay.
How new is that radon requirement?
So that, if I remember correctly, was included in 2013 as a result of some legislative changes. It was in the old version of the manual, but I think it's more apparent now in the new version.
Your next question comes from the line of Bonnie Lemke.
Okay.
Good morning. I appreciate the webinar. It is very helpful. I just have a question in regards to using a link to go to another place in the document and then going back to where you were at. Sure. Rather than having to note where you are at and using the table of contents to go there, is there a back button feature so that you can just simply click that and go back to where you were?
No, there is not a back button feature. This is something that we struggled with when we were putting together the Red Book. I understand that would be great if we could have that, but it just wasn't possible working with a PDF like this. So if you are about to click on something that takes you to a new section, please do note where you are so that you can get back there quickly with the table of contents.
Thank you.
Yep.
Again, if you would like to ask a question, press the star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Ms. Griffin, there are no further questions at this time. Well, I'm sorry. There's one more. Your next question comes from the line of Beth Van Hove.
Okay.
Good morning. You used the search feature, and I failed on how you can do that. I'm trying to find it on the site here now, and I'm not being able to do that. Can you show us how to do that again?
Sure. You mean the find?
Yeah, the find.
Yeah. So there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. The shortest and fastest way is just to hit Control F on your keyboard. So the Control button plus F, and it brings up that find feature. But another way of doing that is just to go into Edit, and then you scroll down to Find, and click on that, and it'll also bring up the Find box.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Ms. Griffin, there are no further questions at this time.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more from Jeffrey Stand.
Sure.
In regards to going back to the previously viewed page, I believe if you right-click and hit Previous View, it'll take you to the last page you were on.
Should we give it a try?
Sure.
Let's give it a try. Okay. So let me see where our example was. Page 16. Well, this is great if I learned something new today as well. Okay, so I'm going to click on this link. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so here we go. So that takes me to 6160. And then if I go to Previous View, what if I keep going back? There we go.
There it is.
I clicked on that twice, and it brought me back. Thanks for the tip, Jeff.
There are no further questions.
Okay. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, thank you so much, everyone. I hope that this was helpful. If you do have further questions at any point in time, just feel free to contact either myself or Sarah, and we'll work with you to get your question answered.
Excuse me, Ms. Griffin. Mr. Strand has one more question.
Sure.
Well, thank you very much. That was actually Mike from our office asking the question, and my last point was I hope maybe in future iterations the Revenue Department will, once the MACO-MCATFO committee gets its process documents posted online, that there may be some best operational practices links that the
Right.
state may find useful to link to.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think we should absolutely explore that.
We promise we're done now.
Okay.
Okay, that was the last question.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you so much, everyone. And Sarah and I are always available as a resource for you. So have a great day.
This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect.